Good afternoon and welcome to the Tuesday editorial analysis on BYJU'S exam prep. My name is Savitri Krishnamurthy. Today I have chosen an editorial as usual from the Hindu. Now, as you all know, editors often comment on the latest events or analyze some current event. So our choice of subjects is rather limited. At the same time, we have a wealth of options as far as editorials are concerned. Every 4 weeks, I will try to take an article from Aeon or some other magazine and try to analyze it. And once in a while, I'll try to take 2 editorials on the same topic. Like today's topic, there is an editorial from another newspaper that I could have chosen and compared in terms of the editor's style of writing, tone of writing. All right, sometime we will do that. Good afternoon, Sonali. So we will start today's editorial analysis from a linguistic perspective. As usual, good afternoon, Mayank. Good afternoon, Nidhi. I'll give you 30 to 40 seconds to read each slide, and then as you read the slide, I want you to summarize it in your own words. Good afternoon, Srishtu. I will not summarize it for you. I have not included a summary in this analysis. We'll go straight to the questions and you have to answer them. All right? Good afternoon, Saket. So are you ready to begin? Make sure you are here waiting for the session to start so you don't miss anything, right? A lot of students joining 5 minutes late would lose the first slide. Good afternoon, Gautam. Shruti, is it? Sometimes your names are not very clear. At my age, I can't read with specs or without specs, which is a tragedy because I love reading. Sometimes I remove my specs and read, but yeah, anyway. Good afternoon. Shall we start? All right, we have to finish by 1, before 1, 12:45 is my target time, so that you can breathe, have a sip of water before you attend Gaurav's session, I think, which is at 1, right? Okay, let's start. 40 seconds, please read. Done? Next slide. Shorter paragraph, so only 30 seconds for this one. All right, next slide. Good afternoon, Indranil. Next slide. Done? Okay. Next slide. All right. Done? Okay. What is the passage about? Quickly, let me go back to the this title slide. What is the subject of the passage in one sentence? What's the passage talking about? So I told you, when you need to look at, you'll need to look at the scope or the subject. Let me just get my pen right. You need to get the scope or the subject. Then you need to see if you can more or less get the author's main point and see if you can identify the tone, right? Some of the main things. So what's the author talking about? Quickly, type in your answers. What is the author talking about in one sentence? The subject of the passage. Have you seen this movie? Yes. What is it about? You'll describe to me in one sentence. So what is the passage about? Is it about Russia? Is it about Ukraine? Is it about NATO? Is it about what? Like that. Quickly, I want to see the answers. Don't have too much time to spend on this. We have 10 questions to answer. When I see the first perfect answer, I'm going to get away. It's about NATO, primarily about NATO and its actions, reactions to the Russian aggression of Ukraine, right? And what is the author's tone? What is the author's tone in the passage? Is he supporting NATO's actions and attitude and reaction? Do you think he is critical about it, or he says he's non-partisan? What is the author's tone? Positive, negative, or neutral? He is critical. Good. All right. So that we have set our parameters. We now know we can tackle this passage rather easily. Let's look at passage 1. Concerning means related to what, Saket? Concerned means worried. But that again you should not use for worried, okay? A matter of concern you can say, all right? But more than that, he is critical. He is not appreciative. He is in fact pointing out faults in what NATO did and what it is doing now. All right. Which of the following factors about NATO's meeting caused distress to Ukraine? We have to go back to the passage for this. Let me get your answers before. The fact that members of NATO met in Lithuania, not in Ukraine. Somewhere it has been mentioned they met in Lithuania. The fact that US agreed to give only part of the support it promised. The NATO members did not come up with a specific date for the induction of Ukraine into the organization, or Ukraine was upset with the induction of its former enemies Finland and Sweden into NATO. The author does mention the induction of Finland and Sweden. He does talk about Lithuania, but is which one caused distress? I saw three answers for C. What about the others? Quickly. Only 3 students in the class. There are many more. I want to see many more answers. Okay. Let's go back to the passage. The very first slide, the very first paragraph, the author says that NATO members met in Lithuania. But they came away. Summit khatam ho gaya, they came away. Like Indo-Pakistan summits, they came away what? without offering any timetable to induct Ukraine, much to the chagrin of the Ukraine president. I will not tell you the meaning of chagrin because that's one of the... So I'll tell you, I want you to be part of my club and you're looking forward to it, but then I don't give you a date. The feeling that you will get, that is the meaning of chagrin. Okay, I won't tell you more than that. So now, the fact is, the disappointment was multiplied. So the original reason for the disappointment was no specific date. It was multiplied, it became more. Why? Because these two countries, it has not been given that they are enemies. These two countries have been inducted, but Ukraine has still not been inducted, when in reality NATO has not only gone to great lengths to support Ukraine's war efforts directly, but has also waived its membership action plan. So if you do well in our scholarship test to enroll into our CAT courses, your fee will be waived if your score is very high. That's the scholarship, right? We give you an amount equal to the course fee. So what is happening? We are waiving your scholarship fee. So here that's going to happen. So the disappointment was that no date was set for Ukraine being inducted into NATO or formally becoming a member of NATO. Therefore, the correct answer is C. Excellent. Next one. What is the author's main point of criticism about NATO? Now, इसके लिए आपको main point, you have to know the main point. If while reading you have not summarized it well, we will summarize it again so that we understand exactly what is the author's main point of criticism. He has criticized NATO about a number of things. His points of criticism are more than one. But what is the main one is what the question is asking. That NATO came away from the summit without offering any timetable to induct Ukraine, or NATO did not explore options for a ceasefire and a temporary cessation of hostilities, or NATO did not condemn the US for offering cluster munitions, because the author calls cluster munitions cruel. He says cruel cluster munitions. Or NATO does not care about market economics, democracy, human rights and peace. At the end, he says if they were really bothered about these, then they would do something else about it. So what is his main point of criticism? All the answers seem to be B. Let's go back and see if you are correct. Okay. Okay. NATO leaders would have done well to explore potential pathways to a ceasefire and a temporary cessation of hostilities. Whatever the reason, whoever started the war first, whatever happened, NATO would have done well to explore options to stop the war. Then you can talk about other things. Stop the war first. That's his answer. So the answer is B, excellent, not D. He is saying if it cares, it would do this. That doesn't mean he is saying it doesn't care. We don't know that it hasn't done it. If A happens, then B will happen, right? It would do this. If you cared about X, you would do Y. We don't know if Y has been done or not, so we can't say X, you don't care for Y. Even if Y has not happened, you can't say you don't care. Right, Saket? It says if it cared about A, then it would have, if it cared about all these things, then it would stop the war. Whatever kind of war. But since it has not stopped the war, we can't conclude it doesn't care. You understand? That is not correct logic. Alright. Which of the following can be concluded from the last few lines of the passage? The same thing. I'll show it to you again. Okay, whenever they ask you what can you conclude from paragraph 4? CAT is very fond of such questions. Paragraph 4, last paragraph, second paragraph. Remember to read that paragraph, read the lines concerned before you draw your conclusions. Alright, so here last few lines of the passage is here. This one. Russia is likely to remain undeterred in its ambition for territorial acquisition. Nothing is going to stop it. Fueled by the shadowy inner politics of the Kremlin. पता नहीं Kremlin में क्या हो रहा है. The inner politics of Kremlin pushes Russia to a path of annexation. Yet, if NATO is a group that genuinely cares about market economies, democracy, human rights and peace, it needs to work towards changing the very paradigm that set this avoidable conflict in notion in the first place. A little bit of your understanding of the word paradigm will help you, but you can still get the answer to it. Alright, which of the following can be concluded from the last few lines of the passage? Question 3. Russia is anyway going to be undeterred in its ambitions for territorial acquisition. But if NATO really cared about democracy, market economies, blah, 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 then it has to think of changing the paradigm to avoid situations like this. All right? I'm seeing some answers for A. Quick, I want to see the current pattern of membership of NATO has to be changed to prevent future crises like the Ukraine crisis. NATO genuinely cares about market economies, democracy, human rights and peace. Why ask if it should be changing means the author is convinced that it is. Could this be? NATO should not be too concerned about these, or NATO was responsible for the Ukraine crisis and needs to be dissolved to prevent wars in the future. Now this is an extreme option, so you're not going to look at it. There would not be an if in the question. So you have a question between A and C. Easy. If it is concerned about these, it should do something else. So obviously you can't say it is not too concerned. You can't say it is concerned. Neither of it. Okay, he's putting a condition. Therefore, the answer is A, and paradigm shift, he is saying. Paradigm basically means pattern. Understood? So the answer is A. Good. Next question. He uses an expression, chicken and egg dimension. He says the Ukraine crisis has a chicken and egg dimension to it. Which of the following best describes the chicken and egg dimension mentioned by the author? Again, I'll take you back to the chicken and egg dimension paragraph. Read it so that your answer is perfectly right. Okay? Here. Currently, there is a chicken and egg dimension to this debate, and NATO has been particularly activated ever since Moscow's unprovoked military incursion into... Let's read from here. Read from here. Would this not be an important time for NATO to consider going slow on recruitment campaigns? The point of contention that Russia has used to make an argument for Russia waging war. So he says, don't you think NATO should go slow on its recruitment drive? Because Russia has cited NATO's expansion as a reason for the Ukraine war. Then he says, there's a chicken and egg dimension to it. NATO has been particularly activated. NATO has gone into overdrive in getting members in ever since Moscow's aggression happened. So which statement best describes the chicken and egg dimension mentioned by the author? Russia's unprovoked military incursion into Georgia and the annexation of Crimea was the cause of the tension with NATO. NATO's recruitment campaigns were the cause of Russia's aggression on Ukraine. Whether NATO's action caused Russia's aggression or Russian aggression caused NATO's recruitment drive, whether Russia or Ukraine started the series of hostilities which started the war in Ukraine. Okay, I'm seeing two answers for C. Any takers for D? Doesn't D mean the same thing? Who started the hostilities first? I'm just asking a question. Do you think D is a possibility? It's either C or D. So I'm just asking only one student for D, others any reason, or can you see what is the one word that makes you think again about is this the correct answer? The chicken and egg dimension refers to which came about first, right? Is it Russian aggression that caused NATO's action, or NATO's aggression that NATO's membership that caused Russia's action? There is no chicken and egg dimension to Ukraine. Russia invaded Ukraine. There is no doubt in that. Yeah, it should have been NATO, and then also it would be wrong. Virendra, then also it would be wrong if I had mentioned whether Russia or NATO started the series of hostilities, because NATO did not start hostilities. NATO only increased its membership. The hostilities, proper war, actual war is being done by Russia. NATO is playing a proxy war. So actual hostilities were not started by NATO. It was started by Russia. But I gave Ukraine there, so it's little easier for you to figure it out. Those of you who do not read it carefully might be tempted to mark D. All right. Next question. Which of the following cannot be inferred about the NATO membership action plan? This should have been capital M. It's a name of a plan, right? Okay. Which of the following cannot be inferred about the membership action plan? It started with Crimea, true, but that was also open hostility of Russia. Annexation of Crimea, yeah. Ukraine was not inducted as it didn't have the same values as NATO members. It's a series of steps to ensure that the new entrant to NATO is a functioning democracy. It's a series of steps to ensure compliance of the new members with the values of NATO members. NATO wants its members to be able and willing to contribute to NATO activities. Which one of the following? Here, let's go back to the membership action plan. And before the membership action plan, the last line is important. NATO has waived its membership action plan for Ukraine. So while membership for NATO requires countries to have all these conditions, to meet with all these conditions, one is a functioning democracy, market economy, military under civilian control, commitment to peaceful resolution of conflicts, and minority, good treatment of minorities, ability and willingness to contribute to NATO operations. These are all the conditions for NATO membership. But in Ukraine's case, it waived off these conditions, right? So obviously you can't say that Ukraine was not inducted because of this. All right, the other three are just a restatement of some of the points of the membership action plan. So all of you got it right. True, but you don't attack a country just because it wants to join. That's the only point. I mean, if India says today I'll join NATO, Russia shouldn't just go on it. Of course, it's a different matter that all the members of all the countries that NATO was trying to get as members of NATO are somewhere within the Russian attack range, very close to Russia. And Finland started feeling very agitated the moment the Ukraine attack happened, because it knew that it's a small country. It needed the protection of NATO members. So yeah. All right. What is the meaning of the word chagrin as used in the passage? Embarrassment, pleasure, vexation, exaltation. Quickly, Rohan, give me the answer number, question number. Yeah, vexation, frustration. There is an element of embarrassment also included in chagrin, but chagrin is not so much embarrassment as annoyance and frustration. Alright, therefore it is vexation. Okay. Which of the following is the meaning of glossed over? You gloss over a fact means you do what? Disregard, focus, emphasize, or burnish. When you gloss over something, a fact, what are you doing? Are you disregarding it, focusing on it, emphasizing it, or burnishing it? Burnish means to polish. Okay, but glossed over means to just go over it without giving it any attention. In other words, to disregard. Excellent. Alright. Which of the following is a synonym of munitions? Cruel cluster munitions that the US has agreed to send to Ukraine or help Ukraine with. Warning, strategies, weapons, or vehicles. What do you think it means? I'm seeing mostly C's but a couple of A's. Munition, ammunition is the same, so they are weapons. And cluster munitions are like those Diwali crackers, no? Those cruel red Diwali crackers. Somebody lights one and then for the next 15 minutes, you keep hearing it. So cluster munitions work similarly. They keep, it's series of bombs basically that goes off. Not one. One photo fight, you say enough, I'm not going to be worried anymore. And next, that's what happens during Diwali. I'm hiding under tables. Mercifully, green Diwali has taken over, so people like me are saved. Otherwise, I close doors and windows, have my music system on the loudest and put on my earmuffs. Any sound, and my blood pressure just shoots up. Especially those bombs, so-called, that go off. Those explosive sounds. Terrible. Alright, question 9. What does the author mean when he accuses NATO members of digging in their heels? He accuses them of digging in their heels. So what does digging in their heels mean? Or what is he accusing them of? NATO leaders just sat in one place in the summit instead of traveling to different countries. They stuck to Lithuania as the summit venue instead of shifting to Ukraine. They kept vacillating on the issue of inducting Ukraine as a member, or they refused to change their response to the Ukraine war, ignoring imperatives of the situation. Remember the contextual meaning of digging in their heels. Not the literal meaning, and it's an idiomatic expression. The literal meaning is ek hi jagah rehna, but it's not that. Digging in your heels means refuse to give up your position, act stubbornly. It's not, he said, instead of digging in their heels, they should have explored options. Instead of sticking to what they thought was right and setting the stage for military escalation, instead of sticking to their position, refusing to change it. We'll give more weapons to Ukraine, we'll do this. Instead of doing that, they should have explored other options. So digging in your heels meant not changing your response or strategy and continuing with, where's the question? Yeah, continuing, refuse to change your response, continuing with your old strategy with Ukraine, ignoring the necessities of the situation. The situation demanded, this war has gone on for too long. And Russia is not going to give up, even though it has suffered greater losses than it had ever imagined. It's not going to give up. So who's being affected the most? The Ukrainians. And on top of that, you have US and Europe, which is not doing very well economically anyway, trying to help. So instead of digging in their heels and sticking to this strategy which hasn't worked, they should have explored options and tried to find a way to make the war end. Right? All right. Grammar question. This is a sentence, the underlined section. If you think the underlined section is correct as it is, then option A you go with. Otherwise, there have been variations, changes made. Find the option which expresses the original sentence correctly in terms of grammar. Members of NATO met to keep stock of their military and financial support to Ukraine on the face of Russian aggression there. Which do you think is the grammatically correct option? A, as it is. B, to take stock of their military and financial support on the face of Russian aggression there. C, take stock at the face of, or take stock in the face of. Is it keep stock or take stock? That's your first change. Second, in, on, at, what is the word used for aggression? Dash the face of aggression. On the face of aggression नहीं होता है. At the face of aggression नहीं होता है. In the face of aggression is the correct one, which is how it has been given in the passage. All right. Okay. We're done with the questions. Any questions from you? Any questions from you? How many passages have you read? How many articles have you read in the past week? Let me know. Meanwhile, look at what we have in offer. We have a new batch starting. Start your CAT preparation with us. Unlock a free trial. Take a 3-day free trial with us and see if you like our pedagogy, you like our content, you like what's going on. Then you can enroll for the course properly. Our batches are on, and this is what we offer: mocks, topic tests, video solutions, detailed mock analysis, practice questions, test series, and All India Open Mocks. These are all what is given to you. These are our toppers, among the many toppers last year. We have a comprehensive program for 2023. New batches have started, so you have to enroll now. Our next scholarship test is on 23rd July. Get up to 90% scholarship on your CAT preparation programs. Test your CAT strategy, roadmap to 99 percentile in CAT from Srinivas on 30th July. Don't miss it, and join our social media channels. All right? Keep stock was not okay. Take stock. When you assess or estimate, what is it? You're taking stock, not keeping stock. Okay? All right. And if you liked the session, do press the like button. Any questions? What did you all read? I thought I asked you to read something and tell me what you read. I have started reading a good book by an author called Abraham Verghese. Yes. Abraham Verghese, yeah. I just came across the book yesterday. How to improve critical reasoning with reading. The more you read, the better you get at it. Vaishnav, what we are doing now is we are doing critical reading. So when you read a passage, first finding out the main point. What is the supporting point? Do you agree with the example given by the author? Do you disagree with it? That itself is critical reading. With that, when you put in the basics, reasoning is like, what is an assumption? Once you know, then you can answer questions. But what we are doing now is we are trying to read critically, which will help you reason critically. The questions will ask you the same thing. What can you conclude from this? What can you infer from this? Do you think the author's argument is strong enough? How are you going to make it stronger? How are you going to make it weaker? So when you read an option, you will say, for example, here he says that cruel cluster bombs. Some people may object to the use of cruel, that it gives an additional weapon, and so that would deter. They think that from the US perspective, cluster weapons would deter Russians. All right. Every time I read, it just feels I have to select an answer. Why? As in, when you are reading for the sake of reading, you don't have to select an answer, right? When you are reading a passage, you can't answer a cat passage by reading the questions first. Sometimes I tell the students, sometimes you may feel better if you know the question. So the first paragraph, for example, if it's a cat passage, which is there, the first question you can see even before you read the passage. So I look at it. In case it asks me which is the, right order of questions, then I say, okay, I'm going to look at this. And as I read, I'm going to note down the main word or key point of each of the passages, each of the paragraphs. That's something you can do as a matter of habit. But every time you read the question, you feel you have to select an answer. The problem here is sometimes answers are eliminated rather than selected. You understand? So you have to go back to the passage and figure out what is the right answer. You have to have the right answer in your head before you select the right answer. But there are some options that you easily eliminate because they are so obviously wrong. You can see when they use words like solely, only, never. Most cases such answers are wrong. So you can say this is incorrect. He is asking about chicken and egg dimension from the point of view of NATO and Russia. So Ukraine coming in is irrelevant. That's why that answer was wrong. Now if you've noticed that word, you eliminate that answer immediately, even though it looked close for every other reason. So when you come to C and D, it's easier to select C when you have these things in mind. That every word in the answer option counts. I need to read, simplify, understand what is the answer option and mark whichever one is closest to what I have gathered from the passage. Understood? But read for the sake of pleasure. Like, any article that gives you pleasure. It can be about cricket, it can be about movies, but read for the sake of pleasure so that you read more. That is true, Virendra. Very rarely would you come up with an article in CAT that you have already read before. Even if you do, like last year, there was one on nationalism, right? Ghare Baire something. I had read a similar passage. But then also, even if I make this question on an editorial and tomorrow Alpa makes a question, Alpa also does editorial analysis. I'm stepping in for her because she is doing other things now, critical reasoning. So we are sharing. Suppose tomorrow Alpa takes the same editorial, she'll do it in another way. Nikita will do it in another way. Vikrant will do it in another way. The same passage. They will find another type of question. So do not have preconceived notions of what you have read. No. The whole point is nothing reduces speed. See, I'll tell you the biggest problem with students is you read fast. If you read fast without understanding what you have read, that will reduce your speed further, Vaishnav. So whenever you read something, focus on what you are reading, summarize or simplify whatever you remember, and then go to the question. You will be in a much better position to answer the questions properly. Whenever you read in a hurry, mujhe question answer karna hai, I'm running out of time, I better finish this fast. That is what a CAT question setter is looking for. He knows that you will make mistakes based on a word that you remember and that word will be put in the wrong answer. So you have to be a good reader, try to focus. That's why right now for this article, for example, the analysis we are doing, why don't you focus more on the article itself? And then you can answer questions. I think you did a good job today. So try to keep that in mind. The whole point of this editorial analysis is to improve your reading. So see if you can read and summarize and then answer questions with me without worrying about will I answer the question right or wrong. You will get it right. Alright, Vaishnava, next time just read an article for the sake of the article or editorial for the sake of the editorial. Just understand what is the main point the author is trying to say. Okay? Time yourself while reading, but don't be too don't be too concerned about the time there. The moment you keep looking at the watch and saying, it's time, then you will not do properly. Alright, try doing this, you will do well. I know it because as a student, I had the same problem. When the very first time I attempted CAT, it was miserable for me. The very first time I took GMAT, I won't even tell you my score. BYJU'S will take me out of my job if I tell that. Because at that time, the whole point was in GMAT, the clock keeps ticking. So you start getting very nervous, and whenever I see that clock, I used to get so nervous that nothing would get into my head. So I would just guess the answers and miserable scores. Don't do that. The key is, even if you answer 2 questions correct, it's better than getting all 5 answers wrong. Alright? Alright, I will see you again next Tuesday, same time. Until then, keep reading. Alright, summarize what you have read. Suggest some books and authors to me so that I can also read. Alright, see you. Bye-bye.